The headlines today: Election Express is now in Western Uttar Pradesh, which goes to polls on the 10th of April. Let's get you a quick check from the ground there. Over to Rahul Kamal.
Western Uttar Pradesh is one of the most polarized, most keenly watched and most sensitive areas in the battle for your vote 2014. We are currently on board the Election Express, making our way from Muzaffarnagar to Ranpur, where we'll be doing our show this evening. Campaigning in this region has just come to an end. Let me get you to meet some of our fellow travelers on the Election Express and find out from them the impressions they are picking up through their travels as we make our way from Delhi all the way down to Lucknow. In the hinterland, that's where this battle is being fought. I want to go across first to Dr. Ashok Lahiri, the India Today Group cephalogist for these elections. You're looking, sir, constantly since the time you've joined us at these Excel sheets. You're analyzing the numbers that are coming in from the ground in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. What is it that you're picking up? Is there a Modi wave at this time or not?
I think, Rahul, the opinion polls confirm, and I'm getting a reinforcement of that from my ground level visits, that there is a groundswell in favor of Modi. What is very revealing is that when you're asking those farmers in the cane fields about Modi, you ask them, have you been to Gujarat? What has he done? They couldn't tell you much, but they said, we have heard he has done great things. And if I may tell you, what I am enjoying the most, your group has brought me back from retirement. I used to do this and I love this. I'm back in business. I'm looking at this.
You're the one who started opinion polling in India along with Dr. Pranoy Roy in the 80s. So it's great to have you with us, and everyone's getting to pick up so much from your experience.
And it's a great celebration of democracy. And particularly interesting is this trip. As you know, there are 74 Muslim-dominated seats. I shouldn't say Muslim-dominated, but Muslims matter. And because of what is called in Hindi Dhruvikaran or polarization, these are important seats. And 16 such seats exist in UP. 10 of them, I think 10, 11 of them are in Western UP and Ruhelkhand. And where you are taking me at those areas, in Kairana, for example, where we visited, there is 30% Muslims. And when we went to that refugee camp and talked to those people in the Barnaby refugee camp, and today we talked to some people, feelings are somewhat bruised. And I think that is going to have some impact on the election results. How much and what, that we'll know on May 16th. But I hope it's a passing phase and we'll get over it.
Also very sensitive, very polarized. And on the ground, the rhetoric seems to be different from what people are seeing on television. Because if you watch television, everyone makes it seem as if this is about growth, it's about jobs, it's about development. On the ground, the reality is different.
The reality is different in a way, yes and no. Because after all, 63 or 64 casualties, that's 63 too many. Even one casualty in this day and age is very regrettable. But hopefully this is a passing phase and there are more issues, important issues like development. And even I think communal feeling will wane as we develop more, as we have more at stake in terms of education, health, better life.
Okay.
And so as of now, we are going to Ranpur, and I'm dying to see what is happening there. So I will keep these numbers a secret as of now, until we come out.
We're putting out the opinion poll on the 12th.
Yeah,
and that's when
then my lips are sealed.
Absolutely, but it's very interesting to have you on board with us. Also with us on the Election Express, India Today Group Editor-in-Chief, Mr. Arun Puri. It's great to see you outside the office. No suit, no tie. You got your sneakers on. You're having a good time, sir?
I'm having a wonderful time. And I'm really delighted about the Election Express. It's really turning out the way we planned it to be, which was to get out of the studios and listen to voices on the ground, listen to people who never will come to studios, local leaders, local people, ordinary people. And it's been a great experience to hear them and to broadcast it live.
In the past 3 decades, you've seen many elections. You travel usually just before the elections to get a sense of the mood on the ground. How do you see India change, and how do you see this election being different from the ones you've seen in the past?
You know, the Indian electorate just never ceases to amaze me. The wisdom, the knowledge, regardless of which class you're talking to, whether they're educated or uneducated, they're really well informed. And this time I find even more so, because you talk to people who are farmers and people who you think don't even have a cell phone, but they're talking about the internet, they're talking about access to information to the internet, videos that they have seen. So that gives me an idea that Mr. Modi saw it long time before anybody else did, to get onto social media, to get onto the internet. And I think that this election is also having an impact on the way people are making up their mind.
He seems to have made it about himself. People love him or hate him. It almost seems that the UPA is not in government and it's Modi who's in government.
Well, that's clear now, is what one suspected even in Delhi, that the election is all about Modi. Either you're for Modi or anti-Modi. I have not met anybody in all the remote places we went to who said who Modi. It's everybody knows about Modi, what he's done, what he's not done. Whether you're talking to the Muslims, they have a perception about him. Even when you ask them, he hasn't done anything to you. He hasn't harmed you in any way. He's only brought development to his state, and even Muslims in his state are doing well. They said no, but we know about him. So it's really election about Modi.
And it's also about impending doom on the one side and glorious days on the other. So there is a, do you see a split as well? The electorate being polarized on community lines?
Well, I think they're voting on community lines, but I don't think that they will live in community lines, in the sense that they have a certain fear about Modi, and of course there are traditional loyalties which people will stick to, but I don't think gloom doom one way or the other. But what I do see coming out here is actually, we keep cribbing about we're not growing at 7% and 8% and so forth. Even I see evidence of 5% growth, where you see colleges, McDonald's. We just came from a McDonald's just outside Muzaffarnagar. There was a place where we went to yesterday where I saw this story about the fact that this college where we had one of our events, it started 10 years ago from a local entrepreneur with 23 students, and now has 7 colleges and 6,000 students, all in Muzaffarnagar. So we hear a lot about Muzaffarnagar in terms of its camps and the tragedies which have happened there, but there's another side to it too. There is prosperity, there is aspiration, there is people who want to get educated, and we see it all along the way.
Okay. I want to go across to my colleague Javed Ansari. It's great to have you with us, and I hope we can keep you with us for a while. Super boss, super producer on the ground on the Election Express. Javed, we were at Deoband this morning, and we heard Maulana Arshad Madni speak, and you know the Madnis, their riff, the politics of the Deoband. I was very concerned at what he was saying. It seemed as if he was creating a spectre of fear, making people believe that doom was round the corner. How do you see this impact the psyche of the Muslim?
Look, notwithstanding whatever Mr. Madni may have said, the fact is that Muslims across the country, there's a certain amount of apprehension and wariness where Mr. Narendra Modi is concerned. Everybody hopes that as time goes by, if Mr. Modi does go on to become the Prime Minister of India, he will disapprove some of these. He'll burst some of these things. He'll disapprove some of these things. But as of now, there is a certain amount of apprehension in most Muslims that you...
But it's being stoked. To be fair to Modi, he hasn't communalized this election by talking about Hindutva, Ram. There is no visible manifestation. His presence and what it brings to the election is one thing, but he hasn't polarized it. But there are several clerics who are polarizing it for their vested interest and really stirring the communal cauldron.
Well, it's being stoked on both sides. What Mr. Amit Shah did the other day can by no means be overlooked. Even the fact that Mr. Modi has now begun talking of the pink revolution, it's certainly not a part of development, and it dismays people who would have been thinking of, who might have believed that, probably he was turning a new leaf. I mean, what is pink revolution? Everybody knows what he's trying to get about. So everybody is stoking it. Unfortunately, politics in this country has come about this, and there is a deep division down the ranks. There is no point in denying this. It stares you in the face the moment you talk.
That doesn't bode well for India.
It certainly doesn't bode. I'll tell you, in Meerut, we were coming out of a market, and we met the market president, Mr. Rajendra Gupta. He says, he was cribbing about the roads, he was cribbing about the lack of infrastructure, he was cribbing about everything. He says we have a BJP MLA, a BJP mayor and a BJP MP, but despite that, we have to vote for Mr. Modi because you know why. So it's happening on both sides. It's really unfortunate. 67 years after independence, we were all hoping and praying that probably we had put this behind us, but only time will tell whether this has really happened.
While there's a lot of experience on board the Election Express, there's also a lot of innovation, a lot of cutting edge ideas. For the first time in India, we're seeing a Twitter handle that actually talks to you. The Election Express is a machine. It talks quite like the NASA Mars rover, which talks as well, posts pictures. Our young field producer Jaskira Singh Bawa has been doing that for us. He's got this fancy XLR camera. Why don't you tell our viewers about what is it that you're doing and what sort of feedback are you getting to it?
Well, it's quite amazing. To give a personality to this bus, it's found so much of engagement. We've had almost 3 times more people interacting with us, engaging with us. Very curious, first of all, and then found it very engaging to interact with the bus, which also has some information, news, and most importantly, people are really liking the pictures and the visual images that we're getting them. Also, very importantly, we're getting them for the first time, perhaps, drone footage, which is giving a bird's eye perspective of a lot of things, which, of course, we have a completely different team on board to give us some more information.
In fact, this is, to my mind, the future of television journalism, a new dimension that is here to stay. I've got Tanuj with us. He's in fact been operating these drones along with his colleague. So why don't you, we've seen those pictures on our screen, so why don't you show me what this drone is and why don't you explain how this works, Tanuj?
So
this is like a small chopper.
This is the smaller of our 2 drones. This is the Phantom. We fly this in areas where you want to get really wide shots. The idea is to give an eye in the sky. Since we're going around to these places in the country trying to find out what's happening, there's no better way than to be on top of things and literally see what's happening on ground. We're doing something that has not been done in Indian news journalism before, and therefore we're very excited to be part of this team.
Well, it's great to have you with us, and some fascinating, truly fascinating pictures are emerging out of those eye in the sky. I also, this is our studio. Why don't you just also see how things are inside the Election Express. This is a massive screen which is really your roadside view of this election. You actually get to travel all across the country, from Delhi to Lucknow, all through Gujarat, all through Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, all the way up to Kolkata, back into Uttar Pradesh. So this bus is on a long journey. This is our studio. We've got Sharad Pradhan with us, one of the top journalists reporting out of Lucknow, who has covered many elections. Give us your impressions of your travels on the Election Express and how this election is shaping up in your views.
Well, from what we've been watching over the past 2 days, and particularly in Western UP in the post-Muzaffarnagar riot scenario, the scene looks pretty, and I would say it's very unfortunate that today we are standing at on the threshold of a very polarized election. Probably this kind of a scene one has not witnessed in many years, and probably never in the 67 years of independent India. But as one has seen how there is a complete communal divide, which is certainly unfortunate, but that's how it is.
What does this mean for the future? The fact that there's an election, the fact that Modi seems to be doing well in this election, is visible to anyone traveling anywhere in the country. There is paranoia amongst the Muslims there. How many? 19-20 crores?
Yeah.
That's 20 crores. That's a big part of our country. How do you reconcile an impending victory in the elections with the paranoia that the Muslims have?
I think this paranoia is also combined with some kind of an undercurrent, even among Muslims, that you can see it happening, that there is some kind of a restraint acceptability also. They seem to be resigned to the fact that this is a foregone conclusion that Modi is likely to take over. And that, I think, what they are looking up to now, paranoia is there, all right, but they will probably look up to Modi as a different person once he rides on to, he fulfills his dream and becomes Prime Minister. And probably they would watch him. If Modi fails to do something, take certain actions to prove that he is not anti-Muslim and he is not the Modi of 2002, then I am sure there will be a lot of softening already there I can see whether...
There's no softening that we've seen.
No, there is no softening. That means softening to the extent that accepting the fact that he may take over.
It's
that is
a realization of the inevitability, maybe.
Inevitability. Because of the inevitability, there is even, you know, even that was not earlier. It was just like if Modi is there, we'll chop him off. That was the attitude. Today,
now, for example, you were there when we interviewed the president of the Jamiat Ulema in the most influential body of Islamic opinion, and he said India will be partitioned if Modi were to become prime minister. That's very, very dangerous, right?
That is a very small section. If you talk to, I have been to a number of madarsas in other parts of UP also, and even while we were talking to the others, the fact that they don't accept the idea, they detest the idea of a Modi being there, but at the same time, the inevitability of Modi is coming. They seem to be coming to terms with that, which is what will determine Modi's fate to the extent that he may be accepted for whatever by compulsion. But if Modi actually does manifest, displays the change that is they are looking up to, then I am sure
the onus then is on Modi to change and to let people believe that there's been change. But the inevitability of change is written on the wall.
It's written on the wall. And let me tell you, Rahul, that is the worry, the most worrying factor for parties like the Congress and Samajwadi, who have thrived so far.
And if he changes, their game is over.
Their game is over.
Okay. It's great to have you with us. Before I end this piece, I just want to show you, and if my camera person Subodh Saxena can come here, this is the fag end of the Election Express, our production control room. It's not working right now, but that's because this is where we roll our live broadcast from the evening. So this is a walking, talking studio, news completely out, where all the real action is, taking it away from the usual format that you see in primetime television, being out where the action is, real people, real issues. That's the whole idea behind the Election Express, and that's what we hope to continue over the next 48 days. With this, let's take you back to our studios.